Governor Northam, welcome to the Sunday Show.
Jonathan, thanks so much for having me.
Well, thanks again for being here. So you leave office on January 15th. You're leaving office when, last I saw, the state had a budget surplus. The unemployment rate is below the national average. So why is it, do you think, Virginia voters opted to go with someone who's your complete political opposite to run the state?
You know, Jonathan, I think what we've proven over the last 4 years is that we can have a very progressive Commonwealth, a state that embraces diversity, a state that takes care of its workers, a state that's welcoming and inclusive, and at the same time have a robust economy. As you said, our surplus is $2.6 billion for the last 3 years. Virginia has been named the #1 state in the country in which to do business. And I really don't think we talked about what we've done as Democrats enough over the last 4 years. The election was nationalized. There was a lot of emphasis on the previous president, and I think we should have done a better job talking about our accomplishments.
I hear what you're saying on that, Governor, but to your point of saying that, you know, under your governorship, you embrace diversity, and yet a lot of the coverage of that campaign was about local school board meetings and centered around, quote unquote, critical race theory and whether it was being taught in Virginia schools. And that's what Governor-elect Youngkin ran on and possibly won on. So what does that say about the Commonwealth?
Well, a couple of things. It says, one, a critical race theory is nothing more than a dog whistle. We don't teach critical race theory. It's not a part of our curriculum in K through 12 schools. What it also says, and perhaps more importantly, is that anger and fear are very strong emotions. And, you know, I think their campaign was a lot based on that, was out there provoking fear and anger in people, and they responded to it, and the rest is history. But that's not a good direction for Virginia to go in. It's not a good direction for this country to go in. And I think we have to start with the facts. And we may be able to disagree, but let's at least deal with facts and then go from there. But critical race theory is a dog whistle, and it's not being taught in our schools.
So, Governor, as I listen to you in that answer, and I listen to your language, dog whistle, diversity is our strength. The language you're using is language that I think a lot of people wouldn't expect you to be using, given what you euphemistically call the yearbook incident. And that is the incident where there is a photo on your medical school yearbook page, 1984 medical school yearbook page, of someone in blackface and someone in a Ku Klux Klan uniform. And as you know, I am one of the many people who called on you, demanded that you resign, and you didn't. And I recently wrote a piece saying why I forgive you. Can you talk about what you learned from that experience that happened sort of halfway through your term?
Well, that was a very, very difficult time for Virginia, and there was a lot of hurt because of that. And for that, I regret putting Virginia through that. I also, Jonathan, saw it as an opportunity for me to listen to people. I committed myself and our cabinet secretaries to really deal with the inequities that exist and to listen and to learn. And as I've said, the more I know, the more I can do. And we've really been able to turn a lot of what we learned into action in a lot of different areas. And so, you know, at the end of the day, it was a hurtful time. I am glad that Virginians stuck with me. I can tell you that I'm a better person. I certainly understand racial issues much better than I did prior to that episode. And I really think Virginia, more importantly, is a better Commonwealth, a Commonwealth that is more open, more inclusive, and really welcoming to people. And as I like to remind people, our society is becoming more diverse every day, and that's a good thing. And it will continue to go in that direction. And so Virginia needs to embrace that diversity if we're going to be able to move forward. And so we need to be able to treat people right. That's the right thing to do. And it's also good for business. And I think it's a reason that we've seen we can treat people right. We can be a progressive Commonwealth, and at the same time, we can have a robust economy.
Governor, I want to throw some words back at you. And this is a mantra that you've been saying over the last few years. Or actually, as you told us on the editorial board at the Washington Post, this is what you used to teach medical students and residents. The eyes can't see what the brain doesn't know. How did you go about learning about race in America, our nation's fraught racial history? How did you go about learning that and then using that language to actually make positive change in the Commonwealth?
Yes, the first thing I would say is I listened, and I traveled around the Commonwealth, and I'm just so appreciative that people were willing to sit and have what were some very difficult discussions. And so I really learned a lot, and from whether it be from access to education or access to business opportunities or access to health care, I learned a lot. I also read a lot, Jonathan, and one of the documentaries that I watched, the 13th, that really put things in perspective for me. And I guess if anybody is interested and wants to learn more about systemic racism and especially Black oppression, I would encourage them to watch that, because a lot of people that look like me, Jonathan, they think that the oppression ended when slavery ended. But it didn't. We then had Jim Crow. We then had massive resistance, and then mass incarceration, and then the police brutality that we saw in Minneapolis. So the point I would make is that Black oppression exists today. It is alive and well here as we speak in 2022, just in a different form. And it is very important, I believe, for people like me that are comfortable to talk about that. The burden has always been on people of color to talk about that history. And I think we're all in this together. And I think people that look like me, need to do a better job of that.
Well, amen to that, Governor Northam. You didn't brag on yourself, so I'm going to brag on you for you in terms of talking specifics. You ended the death penalty in Virginia. You raised the threshold for felony larceny prosecution from $500 to $1,000. You abolished the suspension of driver's license over unpaid court fees and fines, and you legalized recreational marijuana use. All of those things you did in your one term as governor, and all of those things, while beneficial to all of the citizens of the Commonwealth of Virginia, they all have a disproportionate impact on Black Virginians. And so for that, Governor Ralph Northam, I say thank you.